Welcome to Esoteric Talk, where we cover everything within the realm of spiritual mystery. Join me, astrologer, psychic medium, and frequency healer, Lydia Chiarenza.
And me, Rachel Talia, hypnotherapist, intuitive, and energy practitioner, as we uncover what lies beneath in today's episode of Esoteric Talk with AstroGnosis, hypnotherapy, and astrology.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 5 of Esoteric Talk. In today's episode, we interviewed astrologer, musician, producer, oracle, and spiritual jack-of-all-trades Kendra Mateski, better known as Astral Flux. We talked about astral projection, manifestation, astrology, and her overall spiritual journey for a new special that we'll be hosting here called Waking Up. We ultimately plan to come to you with a few interviews with people who have prominent awakening experiences to share, to provide just a little bit more enlightenment on what that process might be like. So with that being said, let's hand it over to Rachel.
Welcome to the show. My name's Rachel, here with Lydia. Hello.
Hi, Rachel.
And today we have the privilege to talk with astrologer, musician, producer, oracle reader, and jack-of-all-trades extraordinaire, Kendra.
Hello.
Hey.
We are so happy to have you here today with us, Kendra. I wanted to give a brief intro before we went into interviewing Kendra on what exactly it is we're kind of going to be aiming to do with a few of these episodes. Me and Rachel talked about how it would be kind of cool to start a series focusing on the awakening process. And we could interview some people that we know who have been through pretty intense awakening processes. And Kendra seemed like the perfect match for our first kind of specimen, we'll say, on the show. So Kendra, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So when did you start, let's see, let's go back. When did you first get into your own spiritual awakening, or when did that interest develop in you, from what you can recall?
Well, for me personally, I would say when I was really young, I already kind of had a little peek into that world naturally, but I went through a lot of things in my life that transformed me and kind of changed my whole process and everything. One of those things would be I started astral projecting a lot in my dreams naturally at a very young age. And because of that, it kind of got me very curious into the esoteric world.
Oh, wow. So what was those first experiences like? Were you aware at first, or do you remember how that you were astral projecting, or how did you come to realize what was going on?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. It started around the age of 6, I would say. And I used to have these, like, what I thought were dreams at the time, but now I realize it's astral projection, where I would, like, be running. And then, like, I would call it my brain power because I was so young, because I felt like my brain was, like, overworking in my sleep. And I would run, jump, and then I would be flying over my city, and I would go different places. And that was really cool for a while. But then when I was around 13, I started getting astral catalepsy, or more well known as sleep paralysis. And it began to, like, really harm me a lot. Like, I was going through a lot of, like, horrible nights every single night where I would wake up just screaming and crying because I didn't know what was happening to me. And then one day I was watching TV during this time period, and there was a psychic, Sylvia Brown, on there. And she was talking on Montel about what astral projection is, what astral catalepsy or sleep paralysis is. And due to that it was kind of like a very spiritual experience for me, because I thought I was possessed. I thought, like, I was going crazy. I didn't know what was wrong with me. And she just pops up on the TV one day and she's like, "This is what's happening." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I started watching it. And that's when I realized, oh, this is something special. I should work on this.
Oh my God, that's amazing. It's funny, watching Sylvia Brown on Montel was like my introduction to as a young
Really?
teen. Yeah, into spirituality. It was like her being on there and then getting her books. And, you know, that was because I just felt growing up like there was something missing, and she seemed to have the answer. So it's really interesting that you said that. Yeah. So
exactly.
What is the sleep paralysis or the experience like for those that have never had it?
So, in the spiritual world, it's called astral catalepsy. It's when you're sleeping, and many people have that experience where they're in a state of flux, essentially, where you're awake, your brain is awake, but your body's still asleep, and you can hallucinate, or you can feel like someone's sitting on your chest, kind of haunting you. Many people think that that's like a possession of some sort. But yeah, for me, it was really bad until I found Sylvia Browne, and I began to listen to her and follow her knowledge and guidance, and I began to be able to hone it, to use it to better myself instead of what it was doing, which was essentially traumatizing me.
Yeah. Wow, that's
I'm really curious whether or not, like, did you talk to anybody about this? Like, what were the people around you? Like, how did they react, or did you say anything to anybody about it?
My dad, I lived with my dad at the time, and I would wake up in the middle of the night just crying, but I didn't tell anyone, no. Not for a long time until after I found Sylvia Browne, and that's when I realized, hey, maybe this is kind of normal because a lot of people have sleep paralysis, so maybe it's not that strange, and that's when I began to talk to other people, which actually the people around me that I was talking to about already knew what I was talking about. They're like, oh, yeah, that's the beginning of a spiritual journey.
So you were so young when that happened. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I was very young. And it would happen like 9 times a night, 7 days a week, like every single night in my sleep.
Oh my God. And then it's like traumatizing. So, okay, so it made you feel like there was something wrong with you. How did that affect you, you know, and then you can't tell anybody. So like, did you just feel unstable during that time, or what was that experience like emotionally?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't tell anyone for at least a few years when it was becoming traumatizing. And what it was doing to me is it was giving me like severe anxiety and panic attacks. I thought that I had agoraphobia because I would go out and I would start shaking, and I would faint a lot and have seizures. And I just really thought I was crazy, to be honest. I thought I was crazy. And it caused a lot of depression as well.
Yeah, and it just kind of, especially at that age, being alone and then feeling crazy and then not being able to communicate. I'm sure, then you get yourself involved in other things to try to self-medicate or do something to try to find a way to figure it out. And it's just kind of like this endless cycle. That's how I assume it would be.
Yeah. And I was visiting psychiatrists at the time for it, because that was the only person I would talk to about it, and they would put me on like different antidepressants and things, and it would just make me violently ill the second I took one. Like within like 12 hours I would be throwing up and shaking, and it was just bad. So I had to find a different route for that.
So interesting.
Which was spirituality.
Yeah, it's like your body was like rejecting it, like telling you like this is not the way that you're supposed to go. Like you're supposed to go in this direction towards being a highly spiritual being, Yeah, totally. I would definitely consider it an early dark night of the soul type thing. And also, while I was going through all that, I was dealing with not only trauma from the other side, but I was dealing with trauma in actual life from abuse, essentially. There's like this boiling point, I feel like, and it's during those boiling points in our life, which is the dark night of the soul ultimately, but just expressing it kind of in a different way. I feel like when you're going through the most traumatic situation, that's when most people find source. They find that higher power. It's like you need that. You're seeking that. Your soul is trying to give you a reason to keep going.
Definitely. That's actually when I first found meditation as well. I didn't know what I was doing necessarily, but it just felt right. And I would sit in my room and just put on music, like calming music, and I would meditate, just close my eyes. And that's also at the same time that I found The Secret back in the day when it first came out. And that's kind of where I began to learn what manifestation is and what all these different things are. But again, I was very young. I was only like 16 or 17 when I found meditation and spirituality through having all of those traumatic experiences.
So we went through your childhood and you had a lot of like trauma that you had to experience. What was your spirituality like in your teens? Like by then, I'm guessing you were more comfortable kind of within this realm, right?
Let's see. I would act out a lot, but it wasn't like in an angry way. I would just go out and party and stuff, and I would go to like a lot of raves and things like that where there were other people that were, you know, people are on drugs and stuff, but they're also spiritual in those arenas. And so I kind of was able to find people that helped guide me through the process.
So when you mentioned the abuse that you were going through as a child, did the abuse happen before the astral projection started, or was it about the same time? Because I'm wondering if, you know, when you're abused, you're not wanting to really be in your body. So, you know.
Exactly. I thought for a while it was just me trying to escape, because it was in a sense. But I had grown up with my parents fighting a lot and just witnessing a lot of abuse at a very young age. Like, I remember crawling, like, on my, like, as a baby, and seeing my family, like, fighting physically and verbally. And then also I was being verbally abused and other things like that. And it definitely was me. That's why I used to call it my brain power when I was very young, because it felt like a power that I could, like something I could control, where I could go to sleep and fly around and be peaceful instead of in my everyday life where it wasn't peaceful at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of hypervigilance too that you have to develop if you're in that type of upbringing. And then, you know, finding ways to escape or finding ways to cope. But I think it also makes somebody really resourceful, and really, it gives a certain strength. So it's obviously, we wouldn't wish these things to happen, but you don't end up the person that you are without some sort of trauma or some sort of diversity or some, if, you know, to be looking for other things. So, you know, from a spiritual perspective, how do you feel about all that?
Well, okay, so from my perspective, I think that I was pretty much kind of born very spiritual. It almost felt very like an innate thing for me, where I remember being at a very young age and asking super deep questions about the Bible and like about the world, and like nothing ever made sense to me. And so, what was I saying? Yeah, so it definitely, I don't feel like people have to go through things to become spiritual, but I think that when you do, it definitely makes that like a fast track to essentially becoming spiritual and finding those outlets.
I think that I'm applying this because I know your natal chart, and I think with you being a Pisces North Node and with it being direct, like that's the given there. Like you were here to do that regardless, you know? Like I agree that pain is not something that we need to experience. Actually, I think that's very subjective and personal. Like the people who do experience pain, it's a part of their path, or it's a part of, you know, their makeup, their upbringing, whatever. But I think for you in general, like it was a given. It was going to happen in some way, shape, or form. And that was probably the catalyst for it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I actually never thought of it exactly like that. That would fit me a lot. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, because you had to find a way to, you know, there was something that you needed to be aware of and to find that. And so whether it was Sylvia Browne or another way, you would have found that outlet. And it's like, and that's what a lot of people say, you know, about spirituality, like it's kind of like you're remembering, but there's typically some sort of trigger or event to help you to remember or to look for something or to know, like to listen, like something's not right, I'm missing something. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. So okay, so you're astrologer, musician, producer, oracle reader, jack of all trades. So what got you into well, even as a musician, what type of music do you play and produce?
Okay, so I started teaching myself, we had a piano in my home when I was young, and so I started teaching myself piano as soon as I could play the keys. And then I was, at the same exact time that I was going on my spiritual journey, around 16, and having, like, I had just found Sylvia Brown and all those things, I also started teaching myself guitar. I taught myself guitar, drums, bass, keys, and I've always sang. And so through that, I've been able to, especially at that time, I would write so much poetry and music, and I would write so many songs. I even wrote songs about astral projection and astral catalepsy. I had a song a long time ago that was called Astral Catalepsy. I did every type of music. I was in a metal band for a long time, but I played everything. I did every type of music, trip hop, pop, rock, everything.
Yeah, she's not just a musician, though. Like, I'm going to be real about this. We're not going to be humble. She's fucking incredible. And I wonder how, like, your spirituality, like, influences your music. Like, I know you had that song where you talked about, like, telepathic Pisces. So I know that it's influenced you greatly in that as well.
Absolutely. It definitely did. I used to channel. I wouldn't even know what I was doing. I would just start doing it, and words would just, I used to, I think it's called automatic writing, where you just start writing, and I would fill out page after page after page after page, writing so fast, the most, like, intricate, detailed things about my spiritual journey and astral projection and, just all those different things. And yeah, it definitely influenced my music a ton. Almost all of my songs on some level have to either do with love or spirituality.
Do you feel like playing music, like, beyond singing, even though I know that you're definitely a channel with the Mercury-Neptune opposition, beyond singing, do you feel like music itself, like, do you channel some sort of energy to produce music as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's like you just fall into the zone. And I really don't feel like I've ever necessarily even written my songs. It feels like they're almost given to me, because I'll have dreams, or I'll just get in the flow state and it just hits me and I just start going and I can't stop. And then when I'm done, there's a product left over, and it's truly amazing to me how that happens. But it's definitely a flow that we all can tap into, I believe. And I had to tap into it due to everything that I was going through. It basically saved my life.
Well, it's also like a meditative experience, because you're just in the present moment too.
Totally. And I was able to get out all the painful emotions. I actually used to write before I was going through all of this, but I was still in the abusive situation at home. And my mom found my writings, and she didn't understand that they were just me channeling, and she actually had me, like, committed into a mental institution because of what it said on the paper. And they were, like, always telling her, like, listen, your daughter is being really healthy. She's doing all the right things. She's writing out her feelings on paper. Like, but my mom has her own issues, and she would just tell them, no, this is wrong, this is bad. So I was always persecuted for music, writing poetry. Basically everything that I am, I was persecuted for at some point. Harshly, very harshly.
How do you think that how did you work through overcoming that, or working, what are some things that you had to do for yourself, or decide, or, to go again?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. Just how did you to know that you needed to do what you love and still pursue your passions, even though you're getting so much negativity and persecution?
I consider myself probably one of the most optimistic, depressed people there ever was. Because literally it wasn't a choice for me. It wasn't something I was like, I'm going to do this. It was like in me, like, I have to do this. If I don't do these things, I'm not going to make it. I can't not do this. And that was in me from a very young age. Another thing that really helped was I really went through at least 2 years where I didn't leave my bed. I was literally just like in a form of like shell shock, but without going to war. And going through all of that, it was just my own mind. It was everything inside of me. And I can't quite put words on it, but all I know is that I would like talk in my head to myself and tell myself like, hey, you're a good person. Your mom's not right. You know, it's not you, it's her. And I would just have to keep reminding myself like of things like that. Something that really was life-changing for me specifically was when I was very young, my great-grandmother, she took me into the mirror one day when I was probably like 6 or 7. And she told me to look in the mirror and to find anything, even if I don't believe it, whatever it is, that find it and tell yourself every day that you love that about yourself. So I'd be like, but Nana, I don't think I'm beautiful. And she'd be like, but you are beautiful. And she would take me to the mirror and be like, look, see your face? And I'd be like, yeah, like crying. And she would be like, you have to find something on it. It's like your nose, anything physical, and just tell yourself that it's beautiful. And I'd be like, but I don't want to, crying. And she'd be like, you have to. And she would say, like, hold me in front of the mirror until I did it. And then I would finally say, like, okay, I like my eyes, or I like my nose. And she would make me say that over and over again. And then she would say, now find something inside of yourself. And I'd be like, okay. And she would kind of help me along the process until I would find something, and then I would say it out loud in the mirror. And she made me do it every day. So that was very, very helpful for me specifically.
Yeah.
I feel like, I'm sorry. I feel like working through what you said about like telling yourself like this isn't your fault, like that was her, like it wasn't you, like that was you working through like your subconscious emotional memory. Like that's lunar right there. And it's like you went in there and you were like, no. I'm not going
That's exactly it. I always had that naturally inside of me. Like, not naturally, my Nana really helped a lot with that, because my dad wasn't really around at that time, and my mom she has her own issues, you know, but my Nana really taught me that. And then after she taught me that, I just stuck to it and I kept doing it. And now I can't stop staring at myself in the mirror.
That's one. So, but you know, and I wonder if you were looking into your higher self, you know, when you were listening, because a lot of times some people, they get these messages and it sounds like their own voice in their mind, or, you know, so I'm wondering if you were also getting that encouragement besides your own inner strength and that ability and that, you know, what your Nana helped you with. But I wonder, you know, I mean, do you feel, especially because you channel, do you feel like you get messages like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I get epiphanies constantly. And actually, I forgot about that. That is a big point. When I was going through, like, just laying in my bed every day, I was having constant epiphanies. So, like, literally every few minutes, something would just hit me and hit me and hit me, kind of like a shock or something. And it was like my own mind kind of like regenerating or something. And it would just like, I would figure out every little thing about my childhood and go back, and every little time that I was hurt and everything would come through my head. And then I would have an epiphany and it was like answered. So to me, that's higher self or source for sure.
I want to know when that was, because I have had very, very similar experiences, and it was probably about 4 to 5 years ago that I went through it, where it was like every question and everything that like could be wrong with me or I struggled with my entire life, like in a matter of like a year, it all sorted itself out, and I was shown like the original like root cause of it, and it was a lot, man. It was a lot, and it was shocking like that too.
Yeah. So I've actually gone through long periods of time with that exact experience, at least 3 times now in my life. One of them was during my Saturn return, so semi-recently, and the other was when I was about the age of 15, 16, 17, and then somewhere in my mid-20s.
Maybe it's Uranian. Maybe it's like a Uranian or Uranus transit thing. Uranus, something personal. I don't know. I mean, I would say moon.
Well, I do have Uranus retrograde in the 4th house, so that would make sense for sure, because it was all done in my home.
Yeah.
So, okay, you've done some events with us, the hypnosis events, and you've had some past life experiences. So Has there been any regression experience, or even just a dream, or just anything from another lifetime that you have insight into that explains or gives some insight into some of the difficult and traumatic things you had to experience this lifetime?
Let's see. The first time I ever did a session with you guys was what was that, like December, I believe, of 2019. And during that first session, I had this past life memory, and I had a few past life visions before this happened, but I didn't quite know what they meant or how they pertain to my life or what it even meant at all. But after going through the sessions with you guys, the first one actually, I had a past life memory of being in Egypt where I was like a young prince or something like that. And I was in a lot of pain, and it was just like a lot of it was caused by my family. Like I felt like I didn't belong in that family. I felt like they were hurting people and I didn't want to hurt people. And it felt so wrong, but it gave me more insight into this life about how that might connect to what I went through. And it began to make sense because everything that I experienced in the past life memories in Egypt were essentially the same things, but in this time frame.
Oh, wow.
I think we should ask our viewers to take a second and guess what Kendra's sun sign is, because as an astrologer, I can see it. I mean, I know her chart up and down, but like it's pretty obvious in the way that she communicates as well as like presents herself. What do you think Kendra is? Is she a Cancer, maybe? Cancer Mercury as well?
Is it that obvious?
It's so, but I love it. It's okay.
Yeah, but this is great because we're the trio. We got the Pisces, the Scorpio, and the Cancer. So
the Holy Trinity.
The Holy Trinity of water. So, okay, do you feel like, there's obviously with your mom, there's some emotional stuff there, some painful things. How have you worked to, is that something that you're working to resolve? Do you feel like you've been able to let it go? Do you feel like maybe, your belief systems affect any of that? I'm just curious about that because it seems like she played a major role in a lot of these feelings and experiences.
Yeah, definitely. So I, at a very young age, didn't really know that there was anything wrong with her. I thought that everything was wrong with me. And then I came to a point later, around maybe like 17 or 18, I had moved out from her house into my dad's house to get away from her. And I stopped, I never really blamed her, but I began to understand why she did the things that she did. And I kind of began to feel really bad for her, but I still wanted a relationship with her. And so I tried to have one again, and the same things just kept happening, and I've done that a few times now in my life. And so now I'm at a point where I've definitely forgiven her. I'm not mad at her or anything, but I feel bad for her more than anything. I feel bad that she's not able to have steady relationships with people, and she is the way that she is. It does still affect me subconsciously on some level, but I'm pretty much through that now and at a point where I have a relationship with her, but it's very distant, and I keep it that way because she's been given a lot of chances to change, and she just hasn't. And I've let her know many times that if she was ever ready to, we could, do this, but she still to this day will deny that anything ever happened. So I just had to kind of let it go.
How does knowing astrology, because you study astrology too, and Lydia, looking at her chart and her moon, and how does that show up? Or how did that show up for you, or did you realize that it showed up, and did it help to make sense of the dynamics in your experiences as well?
That's crazy that you're asking me that, because literally just a few nights ago, I was studying some more astrology stuff, and my mom's a double Leo sun and a Leo moon. and my dad's also a Leo moon. So I was looking into getting more insight on Leo moons, and now looking back, I realized that they kind of need somebody to kind of say like a lot of thank yous and a lot of like overwhelming like love to feel kind of, well, it depends on how evolved and what stage they're in. But for my mom specifically, she really never had, her mother died at a very young age, and so she never really had anyone around, and she had to do a lot of things alone. And so I feel very bad for my mom at this point, and I realized that she did the best that she could with what she had, and that's about all that I can do. I'm here for her and stuff, but through astrology, I was able to get deeper insight into her psyche for sure.
I can see within her chart like a lot. I mean, I've looked over your chart multiple times in relation to your experiences with her, and I know that your sun being square your moon, that's like a major facet of that moon square Mercury, as well as Chiron and Cancer. Chiron and Cancer like kills me for this exact reason, because maybe it's because my moon personally myself is sesque square. It's in a Thor's hammer, so that's why it's like very prominent. My Chiron, but I know what it's like to have somebody make you, or multiple people at that, make you feel like your emotions are not acceptable. They're not okay in some regard, and that's like the curse of Chiron and Cancer in one way, shape, or form. Like there's something with the emotions and the expression of it, and it often leads to the family because that's where you came from.
So
yeah, definitely.
So when someone has Chiron in Cancer, she has Chiron in Cancer, then what's a way to work through that? What's a way, is it finding, well, what house is your Chiron in?
The 11th.
The 11th. So would it be finding your family with friends? Is that a way?
Definitely.
Oh, wait, no,
definitely.
Kendra, isn't it in your 10th house?
No, it's in my 11th. It's at 2 degrees at my 11th.
Why does my chart for you say that it's in your 10th?
Wait, is it in my 10th?
Your sun and Mercury are in your 11th. No,
Maybe.
It is in your 10th house. Unless maybe do you often look at whole signs? Because whole signs might twist it.
I used to look at whole signs a long time ago, and I think it just kind of stuck in my head.
Yep. That's
about my own chart. Yeah.
So then what's the way, even in the 10th house? Is it through, how do you work through Chiron in Cancer in the 10th house and find a way to resolve, or at least,
well, that would go back to like my music, I think, because that's
definitely,
career. And so it was a way for me to channel it. What's that?
You're here to heal the world around you with your own wounds, ultimately. And utilizing a creative talent is a perfect way to do that. I mean, you can reach the masses that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I used to play a lot of shows for many years. I would go on tours and different things like that. And during that time, even if it was a very small crowd, I would notice that when I would sing and play music for people, they would come up to me and just be like blown away. And these were original songs. They weren't covers. And for someone to be able to do that, an unknown person, and actually touch people when it's unknown music is definitely something outside of yourself. It's something bigger than you. That's how I feel about it, at least. And I've had a lot of emotional experiences with strangers. They've always, even when not playing music, they just come up to me and they start spilling everything. And I've always just kind of been there for them. And that in and of itself definitely has healed me, because healing other people helps heal yourself. Well, myself, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because you're using, and it's that empathy and compassion that you have for people because of whatever you went through. You have that openness in your heart, and people can feel that.
Yeah, definitely. Many experiences with people just come up to me and they're like crying or just something, and they just want to talk, and I just happen to be there and they'll just start talking to me, and it's a very beautiful thing. I love those experiences.
Yeah, I definitely think that is very, very telling for somebody who has Chiron and Cancer in the 10th house. And I know you well enough to know that you do that beautifully with others. Like, you just have this very healing aura to you in general.
yeah, I think it's almost hilarious when people tell me, like, they'll tell me, oh, you have such calming energy, and I'm like the most nervous, like, anxiety-filled person, but they get some kind of comfort from me, and when that happens, for me, it's healing, and it's so beautiful, and for them, it's healing and beautiful. It's a win-win situation, and I love it, for sure. My Libra moon loves that balance.
Well, I mean, it probably is the essence of who you are, you know? I mean, I think, like, we have these personality traits and things, but, you know, at our core, like, we have things that have happened. So, yeah, we may have some anxiety, or we may get a little this or that. But, like, at your core, you are that essence, and people pick up on that. And we're, you know, we tend to be so much more aware of our shit and you know, kind of want to work through it. And, you know, so yeah, you may say, oh, I'm this anxious person, and that could be your experience, but yet you're radiating this bigger essence from you.
Definitely. And that's why I say it's like something bigger than me, because for me, it feels like a religious experience, or like you know, it's very spiritual and very healing. And I love that aspect of myself, for sure.
So what are some of your practices? What are some of the things that you know that you like to do to kind of keep you centered or grounded, or, you know, especially during this time with COVID and all this uncertainty, what are some things that you do for yourself to feel connected, to get centered and balanced?
Doing, you know, the hypnosis sessions really help a lot, because I've never had a single time where I've done one and it hasn't been on some level like a breakthrough. And getting into those states helps immensely. Also, I you know, I do my own meditations as well. I do a lot of meditation. My animals help too, my cats. I have emotional support animals. And then music, and really just those are like my big things that help me a lot. Astrology has helped a lot too, to help understand things that I can't see about myself, because astrology can be amazing in that sense, where it can just kind of show you things that you didn't realize about yourself or others, and it's like broken down into a science.
What's one thing that you can, just off the top of your head, that when you learned your chart or started learning astrology, that you were freaking mind blown about?
A lot of things. But one of the things, going back to my mom, would definitely be my my sun square moon and my moon square Mercury. I realized that how much impact that she actually did have on me, because I was in denial a lot, and I used to think that it was my fault, or like, no, she didn't have anything. I used to kind of just disassociate completely and think that never happened. And by going through my chart and stuff, I was able to see that, no, these things did happen, and there's reasons behind it, but you know, I just got to work through it. And yeah,
I feel
also,
like
the nodes really trip me out, how they're very karmic, and they're about like past life, in this life included, like early life, and then what you're supposed to go towards. It's very, very helpful.
I feel like with astrology, when you have been in a situation that involves abuse, especially mental abuse, because mental abuse often has this tendency to make you question what's real and what isn't. Being able to analyze your own natal chart, but also that of your abuser as well, and to be able to see, like, what I felt is right fucking there. It's there, I see it, you cannot deny it, do not mess with my head anymore.
It's definitely more confirmation, and that I definitely need that confirmation, because you're right. I really never thought about that too much, but I've disassociated a lot, and I'll just go into my own little world and pretend like everything's okay when it's not. And so to have that backup confirmation and to see that, it definitely feels good to like, no, this is real. It really happened.
Well, and to even know that you have within you, I remember when you and I were talking about this, I like talked to you about disassociation because I have Neptune in my third house. You're a Mercury opposite Neptune person. You're like, that's what that is. But to even know that you have that trait within you is like a blessing, you know? Like you have that ability for your mind to like completely just leave ultimately.
And I do. I astral project a lot consciously now because I had to learn how to control that aspect of myself because it was so natural. It would just happen and I had no control over it. And so after a few years, I began learning how to control it. And that was very transformational in and of itself. I would go and I remember one time it was a natural astral projection, but it was at a point in time where I had control over it and I was using it in my waking time as well. And I went and I saw my mom. Actually, a guide came to my window and he walked through my window in the astral state. And I was in the astral state and I was in my mom's house at the time in real life, sleeping. And me and him astral traveled into my mom's room and I saw her just bawling her eyes out, crying and crying and crying. And he looked at me and he was like, "That's your mom." And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Yeah, we have to help her." And I was like, "Okay." And so I went right back to my body after that and I woke up, but she was really crying in the other room.
Oh, wow. So did you just read a lot to learn how to perfect it, or at least get better at controlling it? Or was there any, like, for people that are curious how you do it? I mean, what did you do, or what did you watch or read?
I literally read and watched everything, as well as I had people in my life that already knew about it. I read What the Bleep Do We Know About God, and then I watched the movie. That was right after I first found The Secret. And then after that, I just went kind of in a crazy spiral, a rabbit hole of information about it. And to this day, I'm still the same way. I have never stopped studying it. But definitely, What the Bleep helped a lot. And just having supportive people around me that understood what it was. And I had in waking life, I had a friend at the time that he was really big on manifest destiny and spirituality, and he would like do these weird experiments with me, but I didn't know that he was doing them. And he would like show me things about myself and like ask me questions to trigger things. And that happened for about 2 years of this happening, like pretty much at least once a week we would hang out. And at the end of like a year and a half, 2 years, he finally told me what he was doing. And it was so like trippy to me. Like I cut him out of my life because I felt like it was not fair to secretly do something like that to somebody. But at the same time, there was a lot more to it. He did some other things that weren't really cool. But at the same time, to be honest, even though I don't really like this person, if it wasn't for him, I probably would have not been as strong in my spirituality and been able to take control of astral projection and things like that without him kind of showing me the way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I think people come into our lives at certain times to show us things or for us to share experiences, and it's kind of on the path, but it serves its perfect purpose. But I guess, do you think that some people are able to do it, or everybody can do like astral projection?
So everyone can do astral projection. However, I really don't recommend doing it unless you are already either going through something or seriously know what you're doing. I think that you should have someone trained or really like supportive or something like that to help you through it, because for me it wasn't a choice. Like I wasn't like, oh, I want to astral project for fun. It was just happening and it was terrorizing me. And so I began to learn how to control it, and everyone can do it and tap into it, but I had to go the hard way for many, many years, and it was not pleasant. It wasn't fun. It wasn't cool. It was terrifying. And through that, I was able to find, after hitting like every end of the road, the hardest way possible, from at least for me feeling, I had to go down all those different roads to find the right ones. And then I was able to finally control it in my waking life. I would definitely, though, suggest, if it is happening to someone naturally, to try doing it when you're not asleep and work on it in that state, because that was very life-changing. As soon as I started doing that in my waking state, like I was in a meditative state, but I would do it while I was not asleep, and it gave me the full control. So when it did happen in my sleep, I could tell myself, hey, this is what's happening. Like, make sure that you're aware, and I could control and kind of guide it myself. Or it wouldn't happen at all anymore in my sleep, only in my waking state.
Yeah, because you became lucid, so you were able to control that and know that you were dreaming.
Another really helpful part of it was, this was from Sylvia Brown. She used to say, if it's something that's terrifying you or it's scary to you, to pray for, before you go to bed, it doesn't have to be to God, just whoever you want to pray to, source. I just say source, God, whatever. But to pray for 3 nights in a row before you go to sleep, and to ask that it either goes away or to wake you up when it's happening, to control it. And so at first I opted to have it go away, and it did. Within 3 nights, it literally stopped happening overnight. It was amazing. But then after a few years, I was like, wait, but I kind of want that back. That was kind of cool. Like, I just want it to be more controlled. So I began doing the same prayers that she suggested. She even said to make like this holy water that I made. And I did that, and it came back, but it was under my terms at that point. It wasn't any more out of my control. It was definitely just something that when I chose to do it, it happened. And when I chose not to have it, it stopped.
I think that's awesome. And that's the Pisces. I can't even describe how I know this. I just know that that's the Pisces North Node. I'm not saying that not everybody would have that luck, but I feel like we are shown a lot of situations in which we have this like spiritual control in a way that is insane. Like, we can just ask for it, and it delivers. The universe delivers.
It really does. And that's something that I always have to remind myself, is I oftentimes will forget that, hey, you have like the gift to ask and receive. And I believe everyone does, really, but I just, it's not to be taken lightly, in my opinion. Like, I don't just use it for everything, but I can. And that's the cool part, is literally when I am feeling down, or I'm like, things aren't really going my way, I just start telling myself a little mantra, which is everything is always working out for me, which I learned from Abraham Hicks, another big player in my life who was very life-changing for me. And when I start saying that, it's so crazy. Like, within minutes, it starts going my way, and it's so beautiful, and I love that for sure.
I wonder if it's like the Pisces North Node. I wonder if it's like a humility element of it, because I know exactly what you're saying. There's that ability, but it's like, this might just be me personally, but you might relate to this, and I feel like you will. I don't feel like, in some regards, like I should ask for certain things. Like, it has to be at like the highest vibration, for one thing. It has to everybody has to benefit from the situation. Like, there's no selfishness in it. And that's like when it goes my way. But I feel like that stops me a lot, because I'm like, if I don't have all of those like ducks in a row, I guess, I don't feel like I should do it.
I know, I don't know what word to put on it, but I definitely know what you're saying, because I'm the same exact way. It's like, I have the ability to, but I don't, unless I feel like it's like a serious thing, or it's like a specific way. And I really don't know it might be the Virgo axis, the Virgo South Node, like kind of trying to control that, or be like, using it in the correct manner, but it's definitely there. When I was about 6 years old, me and my family were on the side of the road, stranded out of gas, and it was nighttime. I was with my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, and me. And it was dark out, it was scary. My mom was crying, and she was freaking out, and and people kept pulling over asking us if we wanted help. But my mom would say, no, they're scary. No, say no. And she was super paranoid about it. And I was like, Dad, should we pray? And he was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I was like, okay. So he's like, why don't you tell the prayer? I was like, all right. And so I was like, dear God, please send a very nice looking family with a bunch of gas in the back of their car to help us. Amen. And within a few seconds, a very nice looking family, actually my dad said there was 2 cars that pulled up with a very nice looking family. Both of them had extra gas in the back of their car. They helped us out. They put gas in our car. They gave us extra money for gas, and everything was good. And my dad and my family were just like amazed. And that was really something that kicked off my whole spirituality and understanding that if I ask for those things like in the right ways, they do happen.
Oh, most definitely. That is such a cool confirmation to get at such such a young age.
Yeah, definitely.
It will always stick with me. And by the way, I keep going back to the Pisces because we have an event coming up for the Pisces full moon very, very soon. But it always sticks with me, like what you just explained, that Pisces in general has the closest connection to God, yet nobody believes us when we do come forth with like this brilliance. And I feel like that is so true, like in so many ways. Like people will hear things like that and they're like, no way. And it's like, we live this life. Like this is what we experience on the regular, especially as a Pisces North node.
Yeah. And but that's, maybe it's supposed to be that way because it is very personal and it is very spiritual thing, and spiritual things are personal, like it's not, I hope people always believe it, but if they don't, that's fine. But, it's so beautiful and it's so real, and having it happen around other people and having them see it is one of the best confirmations for that, in my opinion.
Oh, it is. I feel like we're like doing something right in the world. We can bring other people over to the magical side. Like, see, look, told you there was more.
I do that now, and at this time in my life, I'm like, look, I told you it was going to happen. See, because I've had so many people my whole life being like, no, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. I'm like, yeah, it did. So now I'm just like, look, this is going to happen. And they're like, no, it's not. I'm like, okay. And I go and I do it. And then I'm like, look, it happened. And they just like smile at me or like, look all confused.
Well, this was an incredible experience. I'm sure that Rachel also very much so agrees. But I think that we are about to run out of time.
Yes, thank you so much. This was a great experience, and I appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
And we have a event coming up for the Pisces full moon. We're simply naming it Dreams, but we're exploring dreams from pretty much all aspects and elements. We're going to include a dream recovery exercise because it seems like a lot of people are having some really weird dreams right now. And the dream recovery should assist in maybe shedding some light on what and that was all about. But also all things Pisces in general. So you should join us if you are interested.
Definitely. That sounds really amazing. That's so perfect too, dreams, because I've been having some crazy dreams lately, for sure.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next week, and I hope you ladies have a wonderful rest of the week.